Welcome to the Jon Orsini podcast. Take a big breath in. Here we go.
How you doing? I am doing great because we just had the full moon in Cancer on Monday. I get to hang out with you, the Cancer King. Like, it couldn't be more appropriate, you know?
Where are you in Rome right now?
Most assuredly. And so when I got the Calendly link, I was like, okay, I have to do this when we're in our motherland for a Cancer King, number one. Okay. And I have to do this shortly after the full moon in Cancer to see how Monday was for you. So that's why I got to come at you in Rome just 2 days after the full moon in Cancer. Yep.
Yes, Italians, fans of astrology. Here we are. So
Yes.
yeah, the full moon in Cancer. I'm gonna check where I even was. What was Monday like for you? Or like, can you tell me what full moon in Cancer is all about? Like, what are like the main tenets of that? Like, what was it about?
So we get 1 day a year where it's the full moon in Cancer, and it's always when it's the season of Cancer's opposite. So Capricorn, but this is being recorded during Capricorn season, which lasts until Sunday. And because Capricorn is all about the mark we make out into the world and really making our goals become a reality and taking small steps to make that happen, the full moon in Cancer is just like the gentle exhale for the universe to remember that we're not human machines, right? That we're human beings. We have emotions. We're allowed to not optimize our life 24/7, right? Like, because Cancer loves optimization, but at the end of the day, it's like, honestly, hon, I just want to be home with my family, enjoying the sweetness of doing nothing.
Ha.
So
Yeah.
that's where a lot of us were. And most folks were resting, relaxing, crying, just in that Cancer sanctuary. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Well, it's funny you say this because as I looked out, because I'm like, I don't remember, what I had for breakfast, right? Like, on Monday, I just looked this up. I had lunch with my mom and my sister to celebrate their birthdays. That was the one thing on my calendar because I normally take Mondays off, and I had that day cleared to just spend the time with my mom and my sister. So, very much Cancer moon appropriate, right?
1,000%. Because if we're with mommy, that's what Cancer loves. Okay. And then anybody else in the family, because Cancer is the maternal instinct in our astrology. So yeah, you couldn't have picked a better person to hang out with than mommy. No way.
Wow, so cool. Yeah, it's her birthday. So my mom and my sister are both Capricorns.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, end of December and beginning of January, right? That's Capricorn?
Capricorn season, yeah. So you like Cancer and Capricorn are polar opposites in astrology.
Mm. Is that good? Is that exciting? Or is that
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, right? Because when opposites are coming together, like you have a piece of the wisdom and they have a piece of the wisdom, and you need both without seeing Cancer or Capricorn as more important. Like, really quickly, Cancer is all about nurture and self-acceptance and care and providing people with the space of emotional safety to just thrive and be a human. Capricorn is all about, well, I don't want you to be safe and cozy. I want you to drop and give me 20. So go make something of yourself. Like Cancer is all about nurture. Capricorn's all about growth. You can't just be growing for the sake of growth and just like optimizing, but you can't also just stay in the emotion ocean and be cozy, cute, and beautiful all day. Sometimes you have to climb the mountain too.
Yeah.
So that's where Cancer and Capricorn are always interacting with each other.
Beautiful. So all to this point, like I do want to say that you are a savant because like I feel like we met the first time we met at Kripalu, and the first time we met, you had asked about like my sign and stuff. And again, I know some of it, like I know a little bit. I'm like, I really don't know much about astrology, which is where I turn to people like you who are like are a savant. And so not only in the practice itself, but your hyper attunement to other human beings, your capacity for listening, like at next level, like connection to human beings, right? And so the fact, like the first time we met, and we talked for a little bit, and like we had talked about the 3 planets in Cancer and some different stuff. And then the next time I saw you, it was probably months later, whatever. Like you immediately were like, Jon Orsini, 3 planets in Cancer, blah blah blah. Like you remembered my birthday, you remembered all this stuff. I'm just like, this.
Oh yeah.
Next level, like as a human being, just first and foremost, and then also with the astrology component and everything like that. It's really special. Like it's yeah. That's awesome.
I still remember your moon and rising sign. Okay. So you're a Leo rising with the Libra moon. I'm almost
Yes.
positive.
Yes. How do you like? How do you retain that? Is it just because you love it, or like what? How does that happen?
I'll tell you what, if there's somebody significant, I'm just like, they're important. They're really in their integrity. And if I really sort of admire somebody, I'll want to know their chart,
Mm, beautiful.
right? Because I'm like, wow, how do they, what in their astrology, theoretically, if anything of it is real, right? Like, what is expressing itself in this person's life? Because, yeah, you just had a really tender, strong sense of open-hearted leadership when you were walking me and my friends through mindful archery. And I was just like, wow, this is unlike really any version of facilitation I've seen in a long time. So, but then I went into, girl, just be the student of this man's teachings. Stop trying to astrologize everything. So thankfully, I was glad that you were open to it at the end so I could figure it out. But yeah, you just had a really like a solid, integrity-driven, caring, competent, open-hearted approach to everything that we were doing. And I was like, yeah, I got to know this person's chart like in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course.
Sen, you wrote the nicest thing. Yeah, we did archery and then we did breath work and you wrote the nicest thing about your archery experience. Like you took all the pieces and you just distilled it like so succinctly. And so I really appreciated that as well.
Yeah,
After your experience that you did that and the post and everything. And
of course. Because it is astonishing to me, John, that we also did that when the moon was transiting the constellation Sagittarius, which is the Archer.
oh
So just
damn.
like,
Gosh. Yeah.
or I could just pretend this is all a coincidence. Yeah, all right, you know? And then my friends and I still just are so grateful for the fact that we decided to do that together. And then, like, there was a random last minute opening and you made it happen. So my friend Mia could be there. And it was so sad. It was so perfect. You were the leader that needed to make it happen. So I think that's what helped me distill it because, the skies were asking for those themes to take shape. You led the way. I just wrote it down.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I'm just so grateful that I met you there and then in Kripalu and so we got to talk about all that but yeah, so I want to go from so you grew up Italian, Long Island, right?
Most assuredly. Irish Italian. That's why my name is misleading.
Oh, sure, yeah, Colin. Yeah, no, totally. I got a little Irish as well.
See,
Yeah,
New York boys.
it's a good combo. It's a good combo.
And it's a fiery one, I can tell you that. Do you take a stance of one more than the other, or you feel like you're a really good synthesis, Libra Moon balance?
Uh, so this is Lieberman mouth. Well, I mean, I'm ultimately kind of like I guess you could say like a mutt of different things, and I never full on did my what do you call ancestry or anything like that. But like as far as I know, I'm half Italian, and
Wow.
I'm an eighth Irish. So I guess by the pie chart, I guess more I'm Italian Orsini. And you're in Rome right now. There's Orsini stuff everywhere. That was a prominent family in Rome.
Yes, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm just like, I need to talk to John because I'm going to Spain next week. And I saw you had availability when I was in Spain. And I was like, no, I got to talk to John in Italy. I want to give him the ancestral energy. Okay.
So how did okay? Because there's just so many things here that
Oh, yeah.
I'm
I'll zip
curious or
it.
fascinated. But no, don't zip it. This is why like want to open this up. But I'm just like it's so fascinating. How did the Italian Long Island how did
Mhm.
the astrology start for you and how did it grow and then of course you made this incredible Instagram like and to so how did those pieces come together?
Well, it actually, again, perfect that we're here talking after the full moon in Cancer. I started learning astrology because my Cancer mother spoke about it in the house.
Nice.
So she would predominantly use it, and she will say it to this day, to talk shit about my Leo father. And she's still married to him, okay? But she just wanted to talk shit, all right? So she would just roll her eyes and be like, that Leo, he can be such an arrogant son of a bitch, right? I'm like, who are you talking about? And she's like, your father, he's a Leo, August 18th. And then I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, lady. And then she she would help me understand because I'm a Gemini and a twin, and Gemini is the sign of the twins. So she was just always creeped out about that, that she gave
Wow.
birth to a pair of Gemini twins. And yeah, it was just kind of a part of the vernacular. And then beautifully, my twin sister just a month ago found the very first chart that I ever printed when I was like 11 years old.
Whoa. Yeah.
And my Gemini twin sister on the annual full moon in Gemini sent it to me. So I've just been curious, I think, about the metaphysical lens on cognition, emotion, and behavior. And astrology was, as I understand it, the most effective way to not just gain more personal insight onto mine, but then also really celebrate and value all the other zodiac signs too. So it was a hobby. I really started doing it when I was 12, up until now I'm 36, 35. But then in my early 20s, I was going to Parsons New School for Design in New York. And, art and design students, they're constantly talking about astrology.
Mm.
And I started to advance my studies there in astrology at the school, independently. And then a professor had said to me, you really should do this professionally. So we're going to ask you to create a fashion magazine at our school that's all about astrology and like an astrology of fashion magazine, because he really astutely said, horoscopes and fashion, they predict, they forecast, and they do. New York Fashion Week is 6 months ahead of whatever we're seeing. So horoscopes and, trend setting is a predictive technology. And then he made me write a magazine on it. And then I just started interviewing other astrologers who became my friends. And they would also say, like, honey, stop doing this for free. And I'm like, bitches, I'm at school for fashion. How the hell am I going to become an astrologer? And then fast forward to 2017, I just started an astrology website thinking, oh, I'll just get my work out there, blog about it, whatever. And then 2 weeks later, I was inspired from a full-time job that I had.
Whoa. Okay. Okay.
So it was fast.
Interesting. Well,
It was.
and is that
Go
like
ahead.
divine? You feel like some astrological divine intervention? So like once you got fired, is that when you started to focus your energy on the website and then on the
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because I was like, okay, well, uh, I guess like I'm pretty much ready to go. And I had the colleagues in the industry who, once I said to them, like, if you get any opportunities, if anything happens, like, please let me know. I'd be so grateful. And so I started, really the website in June of 2017. And then a little bit of a detour. About a month later, my best friend died.
Sorry.
And I think, thank you. And I think that was really like the baptism by fire, because when you're grieving somebody who you feel so in love with and so connected to, does it really just sort of burn away like falsehood and perfectionism and imposter syndrome and all that fucking bullshit that we love to put on our neurosis?
Mm.
Because like this vibrant woman who I loved with all my heart just died. So it's like, let's be real. I have to honor her death with as much life force as I can with the life that I have. And so I can't talk about the beginning of my career without talking about that pain
Mm.
of what it meant to lose her. But what I then realized was then, weeks and months later, all these little synchronicities and miracles would happen. And
Mm.
I firmly believe she's on the other side, helping and pulling some strings. And yeah, every month since then has just been, frankly, like a miracle of the highest. I still can't believe I get to do this professionally.
That's
It's just unbelievable.
incredible. So
Thank you.
I want to ask the next piece of that, but two reflections. One is I am thinking of how the more, the deeper I get into the wellness world, like I've had my own like meditation practice starting in like 2003, 2004, right? But the deeper I get into the world, like that was just like kind of my quiet at home, mostly among myself, like I'm gonna do stuff. But anyways, the deeper I get into the wellness world in terms of facilitating myself and deeper into this community, deeper, the more I realize that people in this healing space, there seems to be all kinds of versions of origin stories like superheroes, like the
Yeah.
phoenix rises from the
Ugh.
ashes, and it seems like, and I'm sure that's probably, I mean, it may be true of all humans, like everybody's trials and tribulations and just like living a human life on this planet, but especially the people who have found, astrology, breathwork, yoga, like who have found these different, all kinds of different modalities tend to have an origin story. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting because, like, the pain and you're saying of losing this person so close to you that you loved, but it's part of the origin story, and it's part of the origin story, and like, that you feel this assistance and support from the other side, and so it's like these heartbreaking things, and it's also the thing. And now, I mean, the reach you have in like how you took this, why is this happening to me versus how is this happening for me, like how I can use this energy to now support others through the practice of astrology and like all these pieces. And then the one other thing is that horse and the farmer story. Have you ever heard that one?
No,
Um,
no, no, no. Tell
I
me.
won't tell I'll just the bullet point version, but it's just that it's sometimes it's called the story of the Taoist farmer. And so it's basically this guy has a beautiful horse, and then his beautiful horse runs away, and the whole village is like, "Oh my God, this is awful! You lost this beautiful horse. This is terrible." And the farmer goes, "I don't know if this is good or bad." And they're like, "What? Are you crazy?" And then the next day, the horse returns with 7 equally beautiful, incredible horse friends. And then the farmer's just like basking in these beautiful horses. And then the villagers are like, "Oh my gosh, that turned out to be so lucky." And he goes, "I don't know if this is good or bad." And then the story just continues on back and forth. And the villagers are always like, "Are you crazy? Of course that's bad." Or, "Are you crazy? Of course that's good." And he just goes, "I don't know," because like everything reveals itself by the thing that comes next. And so when we're in it, we never know. And sometimes it's easier to remember than others. But like, anyways, so those were 2 things that does he think of your process here and your experience. Yeah.
Well, thank you, John. And then you also helped me think of how that's also kind of like astrological too, in that not all of time is happening all at once. In a sense, like, because what astrology just answers is like, what time is it? And we have that, we could maybe have like the Taoist farmer stance of like, I don't really know, but I think it's Capricorn. It's not good or bad, but I'm just going to be here because Aquarius is coming, Pisces is next. We go through this cycle, this Shiro's hero's journey, if you will.
Yeah.
And we just start to kind of allow each season, each chapter to embed us in the wisdom and know that nothing is permanent. Nothing is neither good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, whatever. And we just kind of do our best to move through the time that we have, I
Yeah.
think.
You know what? Since like meeting, and then I want to come back to the building phase of
Yeah.
what you've got here. Like, but since meeting you and like talking more and things like that, I've realized how much, and even just being at Kripalu more and just being surrounded more by people, because I come from like a pretty, I guess you could say like a skeptic, like sciencey skeptic, whatever, which we could put a
Great.
pin in that and come back to it later.
Or
But because the main point I'm making here is the more I've spent time like learning from you and like being around Kripalu and being around more energy, the more that I recognize that there are certain patterns that happen. There are movements in a day. There are like vibes in the air that no matter how skeptical, right? No matter how sciencey, no matter how like quote unquote rational you think you are, yeah, there are these movements of energy, and you're just like, okay, something's different here. And the way that I have found that the most instructive and helpful is to say, well, if there are like literally movements in the stars, sometimes it's not about me. It's not about me and my smallness. It's not about like, oh, I'm in a mood right now. Like, it doesn't absolve us of personal responsibility, but sometimes there are greater movements at play. And if you are any sense of sensitive or connected on any level, you realize there are things bigger than us at play. And if it's not the stars, I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? It's like this is like, so what do you, so anyways, I want to reflect that and like thank you again, because it takes me out of my smallness,
nice.
out of like this small like self-concern and self like, oh, what's a me, right? Like it takes me out of that to this big expanse. And so like how do you like reflections on that? And then also like what do you say to like skeptics, or like what do you say to people who are like, whoa,
Astrology, you really believe in that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, like
Well, first, what I just want to say regarding the energy moving through is, yeah, I think what I love about astrology is it says, Colin, your agenda is not crime here.
mm,
This little, you got to make shit happen. You want it to go your way. No, 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 no. There is an energy that's in you that's not of you, that's guiding you, and there is a larger intentionality happening than you getting what you want and need all the time.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah.
And that's what I love about my astrology practice is it helps me understand what time is it. And it also allows me to ask the universe what it wants and how it might move through me because it's Capricorn time. Not everybody wants to have Capricorn time, but the universe does. How can I be a steward of Capricorn wisdom for however long the sun is in Capricorn? Beyond, again, my agenda, my results. No, no. Right.
Yeah.
And then what I would say to skeptics is like, I welcome it. I sound convinced I'm sure of nothing. I don't believe everything coming out of my mouth, but I'm going to do my best. I'm thinking out loud here, but I would advise really anybody who is skeptical of these questions is like, keep it up. And also, I am so uninterested in a conversation about belief because there are people who claim to believe in a loving God and leave experiences that are anything but loving. So I think what we always want to know when it comes to spirituality, theology, whatever, is does your experience actually back up what it is that you are professing? Because experience is the wisdom here. I say to people all the time, John, I don't believe in astrology. I experience astrology. I can't give that to you, but what I can tell you is you might want to try it sometime because I'm pretty convinced and it works for me and I'm set.
Beautiful. I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah, beautifully articulated. That's
Thank you.
fantastic and definitely resonates. And it's interesting too. Like something that's really resonating too, that's coming up right now is like even with this chart behind you and stuff, is this it's a balance. This inherent sense of balance. Like sometimes our nervous system is addicted to stress, So like we might not think we want it, we might whatever, but like the nervous system, right, will be addicted to stress. And so like imagine a universe that's always one thing, a universe that's always Capricorn, right? Or a universe that's always Cancer or like whatever. It's like within that astrological wheel, it seems like, right? And like, definitely correct me if I'm wrong or like whatever, however this, but I'm like getting this sense of like the universe has balance and that astrological chart like contains inherent balance.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I love that your Libra moon, the balance scales was like, I am getting balance from this conversation. I know. I love it. I love it. Yeah. I look at it too as just like an awareness of our oneness and an awareness of the fact that we need 12 wisdoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
We might need a whole lot more. It's not just Cancer or Gemini. And I mean, John, if the world could just grasp that we could think beyond the binary to the both end and not only, but also, what a world we would live in.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's also what I love about astrology is it helps me regulate my objection to the differences of others.
Ah, that's incredible.
It not always comfortably, but I'm just like, well, this is a Taurus who's going to Taurus, and I'm a Gemini who's going to be annoying, and that's it. Like
you're a Gemini who's got a Gemini. No need to.
Exactly. You're like, make it a verb, honey. Make it a verb. Okay. But yeah, and then that way it's not about good, bad, right, wrong. It's just like letting all of these expressions of God, of nature, of infinite wisdom coexist.
Yes. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So now when we go, so you started with the website. Is that still the same website? Like,
oh no, I switched it a little bit. It went from queercosmos.com to colinbedell.com. So because I published a book called Queer Cosmos, and I was like, right, so put all of that body of literature in the book. And then my co-founder for Queer Cosmos, I call her my lesbian husband, affectionately. She helped me make a website just called colinbedell.com. So that's now what it is. But I put my horoscopes in a lot of different places since then.
Beautiful. And so I didn't even realize you published a book, so I definitely want to talk about that too. Yeah. When did the Instagram come into it? This beloved, freaking amazing Instagram. When did this come in here? Yes. Yeah.
So that actually started around the same time. And like you, I have a Leo rising. And I at first thought that the best thing would be for me to kind of just be more of a guide and not put too much personality and, entertainment into it. But then I actually had a friend tell me like, what the hell are you doing?
Yes.
Like, You know, a Scorpio, gotta get a Scorpio to tell you the truth. And
Yes.
because I had joked with her and I was like, Catherine, of course the whole zodiac is a story. And then I explained it to her really quickly from Aries to Pisces.
Hmm.
And she looks at me and she goes, if you don't make a video about that, like, I don't want to talk to you ever again.
Yeah.
So I come home, I make a video about that. I do a reading. Next thing I know, this was when I was posting videos on Facebook at the time. It got 600,000 views and got shared like 1.5 million times. And John, it is just me reenacting the Zodiac in my kitchen table.
With personality. When you're saying like, oh, should I just do readings, no personality? It's like, what?
Yeah.
No, dude. So like, that's amazing. What a great friend. What an angel along the way. Like,
Get you a Scorpio.
that makes me think of and then I want to pick right back up with this because that makes me think
Sure,
of I
sure.
once read this quote that was something like a friend is someone who knows the song in your heart and can sing it back to you when you've forgotten the words.
Ooh. Whoa.
Like so not that you like forgot whatever, but like just the idea that you like yourself and like sometimes we're too close to it. And then so
Totally.
to have a friend be like, "Are you kidding me? Bring the personality, tell the story the way you told the story, like do it." Like
Yeah.
that's a good friend. That's so cool.
I'm going to text you, be like, Catherine, you came up in this podcast. We appreciate you. Thank you. We love these Scorpio
Yes.
women. Yes. And
Thank
now
you,
she does
Catherine.
that for a living. She's always helping people express themselves in business. And yeah,
Mm.
I think there is a part of anybody involved in the healing professions, right? And I'm sure this is something you can understand. Like, how much of ourselves do we want to put into the work when we are more so here to be a deep and integrity driven service to others? So it was a tension around like, how much levity and entertainment do I want to bring when we are talking about, some serious wisdoms? And my career started right at the beginning of Trump's first term.
Mhm.
So, this was 2017. Things were really insane, still were, still are, probably always will be. And so it was difficult for me to like kind of read the room and think about, right, so how much education do I want to bring into this versus entertainment?
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful. It makes me think of I feel like I love Alan Watts very much. And Alan Watts, he'll say things like, I listen to his lectures and I listen to him over and over again because he brings a levity and a humor to these very
Yes.
spiritual and very, I guess you could say, serious things.
Yes.
Except the levity and humor he brings, he makes you realize like how it's too important to take too seriously, kind of thing or whatever. And
Yes.
but he's like he'll say, he imparts a lot of wisdom about Zen and blah blah. But to the point specifically here, and it makes me think of you every time. He calls himself a spiritual entertainer. You know, because and that's
Yes, Alan.
yes, and so because it's not that it's like let me entertain to distract. It's like
No.
let me breathe life into this thing so that it really lives in you. You know what I mean? Like it's not stuffy. It's not boring. It's not whatever. It's like, woo, let's bring the spiritual and the profundity with like play and fun and humor and personality.
And I think I'm almost positive. I'm like tempted to bring out my phone, but I wanted to give you my undivided attention. I
Yeah.
think Alan Watts is a Capricorn. And so, yeah, so we've been talking about your opposite side, right? Look up his birthday, honey, because now I know. Yeah, because I don't know if his work exclusively, so thank you for reminding me of him. But friends of mine have mentioned nothing but positive things about him.
Yeah.
And and yeah, just that he can provide, yeah, that sense of like levity. What's his birthday?
He's a Capricorn. 6th January 6th, 1915.
Oh, I love it. Rest in power, Alan. Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's wild too, because, astrologically speaking, John, Capricorn would be the sign that theoretically would take themselves too seriously.
Mm.
So the fact that he could just show that paradox of, please don't take this so seriously where like it's all about you and you forget to have fun.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
loved when you mentioned breathing life because that has become really, I think now, like the central animating premise of my work is how can I bring as much life force as possible through with astrology because I am starting to feel like it's becoming lifeless.
Interesting.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Do you want to? Okay, yeah. So don't say more if you don't want to. But like, is
Oh, I
there?
will. I am more than happy.
In what way is it? In what way do you think? Like, is it feeling lifeless, or like what? How is that manifesting itself, or how do you feel that?
So I'm reading a work called Controlling the Uncontrollable. It's by German sociologist Alan Hertz. It's around here somewhere.
Mm.
And what he argues is that a known, predictable world becomes a dead world,
Ah.
and that only in the unknown do we generate life force.
Mm.
And what what's making me nervous is it seems like the dominant stance that tarot readers, astrologers, anybody involved in like the spiritual and predictive arts has is in an effort to help, we are making the world too known and we're
Mm.
not providing people space to risk, to trust, to tolerate the unknown. And in doing so, we are creating a lifeless conversation and it feels lifeless when I watch it.
Okay, okay, okay. So there's a couple of things here.
Yeah.
Interesting because I think about that how our lives are predictable with phones, like the way that culture is like with a map. And again, I'm not advocating like there's pros and cons. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but just to continue
Yeah.
this feeling that our culture because life is inherently unpredictable at its core. Like everyone
Correct.
listening to this, that it's like, are you kidding me? Like yes, no, I hear that, I hear you, and no, for sure. But that we have this certain degree of expectation about predictability in terms of like the map is always on the phone. So there's no like
Yeah.
discovering a new restaurant as you stumble around a city. You know what I mean? Like a new city, like walking around Rome without a map
Oh my
and
God.
just being like, I'm just going to explore for the day,
Yeah.
and just like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I grew up in a time when I still was able to do that. Like in college, I wandered around Prague with just my camera, nothing but my camera, and of course, you need like markers to make sure you can get home at
Yes.
day, like somehow.
Yes.
But like
Yes.
just
Yes.
wandered around Prague with my in a film camera, no less, and just it was like, oh, and like the discovery, the adventure, the excitement, like
Oh my God.
discovering new restaurant, like not, but that inherently means uncertainty, which can be scary, which can be not
Yeah.
news. And then related to that too, as you've done with me, the breath work, right? This is a big thing, like a way to practice in breath, to practice this bigger sense, like you're saying in astrology, like the way it manifests itself is in the breath. Like a lot of the way I guide people is it's a relinquishing of control about what we think we want or what we think we know or what we think we're comfortable with, because the nervous system is addicted to the familiar. It's addicted to the predictable, even if that predictable is an abusive relationship, right? Just like something that's not working for you. So, like, when we start to breathe and we move prana, we move life force. So, like you're saying, moving life force with the astrology, like as we start to breathe and we start to move that life force, it's going to inherently feel unfamiliar because it'll
Yes.
be new sensation. Even if that new sensation is an expansiveness of joy and bliss, it's new. So the nervous system might be like, I don't know if I want that. And you're like, what are you like? What are you crazy? Like, of course, like this is what we're after. So, anyways, just to reflect on this, and it's very
Yes.
exciting. So you want to bring this to astrology. Yeah.
Yes. And thank you for giving me the nervous system reminder because that actually I should talk about too, is that,
Mhm.
a lot of the coverage that I see with astrology, again, it's not that it's fear mongering, but it gives the familiar quality that the nervous system wants is here's what I should be afraid of, and here's who's to blame.
Mm, mm.
And it's like, be mad at Neptune. And it's like, Neptune is up there going, girl, don't be mad at me.
Yeah.
Like, be mad at your government. So that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I just want to create an astrology, whether it's through laughter, song, dance, entertainment, play, theater, whatever,
Yeah.
but just that it has more life force because the more we predict and John, it's not even just, the phones. I mean, Amazon tells me what to buy, Spotify tells me what to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how else am I going to feel fully alive but the fact that I make my own decision and the ripple effects go out into the fucking world?
Yeah. That's
Hello? What
yes.
is going on here?
Yes, the way that we would discover new music by like hanging out with some people we never met, and they'd be like, "Oh, you ever heard of this?" And it wouldn't be from an algorithm; it would be
No,
more
hun.
like just random in a sense, or
Yes.
excitingly random in a sense. Whereas the
Yes.
algorithm gives you like more of the same, just a little bit different. but more of the same, just maybe just a little bit different, rather than being like, I've been listening to country music my whole life, and now I just met this friend who's like, hey, you ever heard of Fela Kuti? And you're just like, what? No. And then you listen, it blows your mind. It's so good. You know what I mean?
Through people instead of
Yes.
freaking algorithm, like the
Yes.
relationships. Anyway, yes.
No, totally. That's fantastic.
Thank
And
you. I'm trying to. It's fine.
and it makes me think of one other thing about the about predictability is when I lived in Los Angeles for 2021. I lived in Santa Monica, and I loved it. I loved it out there. A bullet point just to say, so I lived in New York City for so long, and so many of my New Yorker friends who are even out in LA, they all like hate on LA. I loved living in LA. I loved it. So
Yes.
just yes,
Yes.
just to say that I loved living in LA. But something that I found was really interesting was a lot more astrology talk in Los Angeles than happened in New York City. Of course, it happens on the East Coast too, as you know. You're from Long Island.
Not as much, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. LA is our mothership. It's amazing.
Yes. So what I found interesting though, in terms of predictability, was like, I was single at the time, so I would go on some dates, and I had a lot of different friends, whatever. But I would talk to, especially the either a girl I went on like dates with, like a date or two with, or whatever, just people I was getting to know, and there would
Mhm.
be a lot of talk of astrology and compatibility. And what I realized was like I would be talking to different people, and they were using co like the app.
Co-star.
Yeah, they were using the app. Like I'd be, for instance, like I'd go on a date. We were talking about astrology, whatever, and then like I'd be talking to one of my friends, and they'd be like looking up. Everybody's using CoStar like to figure out the compatibility. And
Yeah.
how many times I was talking to a friend, and she would be like, "Oh, I just went on this date," and I was like, "Oh, how were they?" And they would be like, "They were amazing." Like, "Oh my gosh," like blah blah blah, blah. And they were like, "Okay, okay, I'm gonna pull it up in CoStar." And then they would look at it and then be like, "Oh no, it's never gonna work. It's never gonna work." And what I saw, and please correct me if I'm wrong or like your take on this, what I saw was essentially avoidant behavior. It was like using astrology
Ooh.
as a way to avoid a good
Whoa.
feeling. It was like, so we're talking about nervous system, right? And like how anything new anything that's an expansion of the nervous system is unfamiliar and scary. Even if that feeling is like excitement, good. It's like, oh, I met this person, I'm really into them, but now I'm really scared about it. I want some predictability. So let me go to this app or let me go to astrology, and maybe
That's
it'll
right.
say, you know what, you're aligned on this and this, but maybe like the physical connection is just average, or maybe there's like a financial thing that's maybe a little bit of a misalignment. And rather than
Yep.
being like, you know what, I'm going to keep talking to this person, I'm going to see, because maybe our differences will actually create a polarity that's interesting, or like I could learn something from. They would just look at the astrology to be
Yep.
like, you know what? No, even though like they'd be so excited, they would shoot themselves in the foot just to those avoidantly get in their own way because they were afraid of actually liking somebody. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I do. And if your mic was not attached to the thingy, I'd say pick it up and drop it. Okay. Whatever that shelf is. All right. Wow. Yeah. I'm thinking avoidance. I think it's also like it's risk aversion. I think that's also just like so detrimental because again, how else do we know that we're fully alive and feeling eroticism, but taking risks and seeing what happens?
Yeah.
And I also think it's like suspicion and hypervigilance, which I really just have a whole lot of no tolerance for.
Sure.
And then using astrology, like, yeah, see, I have never, and it was in my book, and I'll say it time and time again, I have never believed in incompatibility with people, ever.
Mm.
I've always said that every single zodiac sign is compatible with every single zodiac sign.
Wow, nice. That's amazing. Can you say, because like obviously people will be like, oh well, these two are fire and
Yeah.
water or whatever, and like whatever. I'm like, it's
Right.
interesting. Like I don't, is that like, can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, well, because there's so many distinctions in a natal chart, period, right? Because yes, you're a Cancer, but you're a Leo rising. So technically, Aquarius is the ruler of your relationship sector. So that's a whole thing. But also, I actually believe that central casting, God, the universe, whatever language you want to use,
Yeah.
assigns people to each other. So it's not up to astrology to say, hey, is John compatible with a Sag, a Virgo, or this or that? But I believe that astrology can tell the story of why you're assigned to one another.
Mm.
And then the question becomes not whether or not we're compatible and am I getting my needs met, but am I learning love given and received and trying to keep my heart open at the same time
Mm.
while feeling safe and getting my needs met?
Beautiful.
And if astrology can help you with that, which I believe that it can,
Mhm.
then I believe that it's being leveraged gorgeously because again, all the zodiac signs fit in this circle. So anybody that casts one out, like, girl, what are you doing?
Mm. Mm.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know? And then also too, like not that much of a hot take anymore because it's kind of established consensus, but in the natal chart, John, you actually have every single zodiac sign there. You might not have a sign, you might not have a planet in a sign, but in a natal chart, because it all looks like this, right, for visual reference, and each section of the chart has a zodiac sign in it. So if you say, go, ugh, I want nothing to do with Capricorn, you've now just eliminated like an 11th power source
Mm.
and you're rejecting yourself.
Yeah.
So once again, it's just like, what are we doing? If it's not a lens for connection and care, I believe it's being used lifelessly. Again.
Interesting. Yeah, there's it makes me think of like as an actor, people will say, well, in a part of being an actor, or like I'm sure any sort of creative expression is realizing that everything exists within you. Like you might think like a character might kill somebody and you might think, of course, I'm nonviolent. I would never kill someone. It's like, well, tell me the circumstance. I guarantee you there's going to be some kind of circumstance where you can, like against your will, blah, 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 but be pushed in a certain direction, blah, blah. Like to say that like that whole chart lives in us in the same way the whole universe lives in us, the whole universe of human experience lives in each one of us. And so, like you're saying, you're casting out one of the powers of this 12.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's I was talking with one of my friends just the other day, and we were saying, there's that Rumi thing. You are not a drop in the universe. You are the universe in a drop. You know, and that makes sense for the chart, right?
1,000%. Yeah. And then, of course, the miracles would say, you think you're a sunbeam separate from the sun. You think you're a wave in the ocean separate from the ocean, but you are each other.
Mm, yeah.
So again, I'm not saying human beings are easy to get along with. I'm not saying, we're not going to experience pain and difficulty in relationship. But I would really love to see those of us involved in spiritual growth to help kind of onboard people with relationship expectations, relationship skills, conflict management, approaching hard things. Because again, if we're not doing this to understand and connect with each other, then it's just really self-indulgent bullshit at the end of the day. I'm completely not interested in that.
Ugh, that would be if you had the mic there too. You could drop that one right there. That is fantastic.
It's true. And
So
John,
true.
all over social media, it's like, how can I use this to get what I want and manifest my best life and me, and but I'm spiritual. No, girl, you have a really big appetite
Yes. Oh gosh.
and
Yeah.
a lot of adrenaline, and you need to calm down because it's not all about you, you
Yeah.
know?
Ugh.
And so, anyway,
Oh gosh, we are so lucky to have you. This is
John,
amazing.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, with this idea of like breathing life into it, I just want,
Yeah.
are there like concrete ways that you'd be like, if someone like people who are listening to this are like really into astrology, like ways that they can get rid of the stagnant predictability and that kind of takes the life out of it, and like ways that they can explore their practice that like breathes the life into it, or like,
Yeah, well, honestly, the first thing I would say would be to ask your listeners and viewers to ask their higher power, ask the universe, how should I express my astrology today?
mm,
Just get into a question and answer phase with the universe. And then if they're listening to or watching content where, yeah, it just activates the nervous system a little bit, using a little too much essentialist language, good, bad, least, wrong, most right, whatever, avoid that. And I would love for your people to have an astrological relationship that allows them to maximize their tolerance level with uncertainty. I don't want them to think astrology is going to move them from the unknown to the known, because that's not how this works. And any person who is professing that that's what they're doing is pretending and lying to themselves.
beautiful. Yeah, I saw you, not to bring up like a heavy thing, but it's present.
No, please.
Like I saw you had mentioned on your Instagram about like astrology and how people were working with the concept of the fires in Los Angeles. And so
Yeah.
astrologers were taking some point of view that you were like, no, no,
Un.
no. Yeah.
This is not the time. Yeah, and that's what I just kind of noticed is that people are commodifying off of a crisis because to allegedly, whether they did it or not, predict a disaster, you're going to get press coverage. You're going to get that kind of notoriety. And I'm just not interested in that astrology. I also think it's unfound. I think it's like grave robbing. It's just really gross. I'm much more interested in astrology. I don't know if you know of Walter Mercado, the really celebrated Puerto Rican astrologer.
I don't
But
know, Walter.
oh, that's okay. That's okay. He's got an amazing documentary called Mucho Mucho Amor. And John, this Boricua took astrology and vroom, lifted it to the most beautiful expression. And why he inspires me so much is because he became extremely popular in the early 80s to the late 90s in countries that were really gripped by Catholicism, machismo. And here he is, this like flamboyant, androgynous Regina, queen, we don't even know, talking about Capricorn, Aquario, Pisces, blah, blah, blah. And all of the family would just be like,
Yes.
engrossed. Okay.
Yes.
And then he would end every segment with mucho, mucho, mucho amor. And he was just sending people messages of love and peace and hope.
Ah, yes.
He's
Yes.
I am convinced he is the greatest astrologer of our time. And most people who grew up in Spanish speaking families would know him. So I try to just like really give him all of the credibility and just esteem he deserves. Yeah.
Will you say the name and the documentary one more time?
Sure, it's Mucho Mucho Amor on Netflix.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
he's incredible and just like funny and campy and an entertainer. But like similarly to Alan Watts, he sees himself as like a spiritual entertainer. He
Yeah.
is trained, he knows his discipline, but he also can work with glamour, the arts, dance, fashion to captivate people and suspend them from the weeds of the world a little bit. And then once he's got their attention, he's just telling them to love one another.
Yes. Yes. That's incredible.
He amazes me. Yeah, I love Walter Mercado with all my heart.
What more of an important message can we have? You know what I mean? Like regardless of the way that you express in the world, like if the bottom line isn't just like love each other more, like then what are we doing? You know?
I we're just scratching the surface, and I get it because we'll go at a pace by which the nervous system and everything can theoretically allow.
Yeah.
But if the last 5 years have taught us anything, it's like we really don't have time for a whole lot of people's learning curves anymore. We just gotta like andiamo a bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
and God.
And not get brought down, like I remember seeing some beautiful clip of I think it was Rainn Wilson, he played Dwight on The Office and a lot of the great parts. I think it was on the Rich Roll podcast or something, but he said like he was saying something about like don't give in to the cynicism. And he was like
Oh
had this
yeah.
beautiful, he just went and he like went on this thing of don't give in to the sin, don't become cynical, don't let it happen. And so there's something about, like be the change you wish to see in the world. And I
Yes.
like to say, I like to say even more specifically, embody the change you want to see in the world, which is essentially the same thing, but like that somehow that word embody the change you wish to see, because if you're surrounded, like you don't have time to wait for this learning curve or this like openness or whatever, it's like be the openness, because like sometimes in our combating of the closedness, we can become closed. And it's like, be the openness, be the openness, be the openness. And I think by once more being the openness, we actually can sometimes be surprised about how many people are willing to meet us there that maybe we wouldn't have expected if we come with the openness, because so many people are afraid. They're just running around fucking scared. And sometimes it looks like anger. Sometimes it looks like closed-mindedness. But a lot of it's just fear. And like, Nelson Mandela, so many other people say there's two options, fear and love,
That's it.
you know?
So what are you going to let guide you, And I honestly think meeting you is an example of that, right? Because I was like, oh my God, like keep your mouth shut. You're the student. He's the teacher. Then immediately there's like that intimidation factor of just like, bloop, be on your best behavior. But you were leading all of us with so much care and love and an open heart. And so that's when I felt moved to just not like pretend that I wasn't trying to astrologize the whole thing. Just ask you, by the way, when's your birthday? And he's like, hey, I'm into astrology, the moon's inside, blah, blah, blah. But you created that field in the way that you facilitated so that we could feel comfortable not only to take risks, but to ask you those questions and kind of meet you in the openness that you had. You left the crab shell at home. There was no armor. There was no self-protection. You were just marching out into the woods, with the bow and arrow behind you. And I was like, damn, I need to wake up and walk with that purpose too. Like, what am I doing?
Thank you for saying that, and thank you for refining that.
Yeah,
But
of course.
there's this sense of, and right back at you, because there's this sense of openness, like to talk about stuffy or whatever. Like when people are guiding, like as a guide, as you do, and like you guide people and help people so much, it's like if you take the position that something, right? Like of course, like we study our if you want to call it craft, or like our it's our vocation, it's like our purpose. You know what I mean? And that's why we're so passionate about it. It's like, yeah, so we study it, we practice it, like it's our life, and then we share it. But it's sharing from a place of like just letting people know they're not alone, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so rather than being like, I have something to tell you, it's like, no, fuck that. Like that's where like the guru shit goes sideways. It's like, fuck gurus, like, whatever. Like, what do everybody's a human, everybody makes mistakes. Like we're all on this journey together. We're all on this like rock, just like spinning through space among the stars, like, right? We're all stardust. And so it's just like, yeah, so it's just an opportunity to connect, to love each other more. And it's just the formats in which we do it. So I appreciate you saying that. And I, of course, feel the same way about you.
Thank you. Yeah, we both got that Leo rising. Like, let's try really hard to keep our heart open to love, lead with the heart, because our rising sign is all about heart-centered leadership and leadership as a kind of love. Because, yeah, it's not about top-down domination. It's about care. It's about, like just making sure that everybody knows we're thinking out loud too. We might be half a step in some places, but others can be half a step in us. And let's just collaborate from a unilateral top-down place, anti-hierarchy, and see where that takes us.
Beautiful. And let me ask you, I want to ask you two more things. One is, so I want to ask about the book, and then, and I want to make sure too, because I am not an astrology savant. I know we've talked before, but you mentioned a Leo rising. What
Yes.
are your other, like, what's your chart?
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, it gets me into trouble. So I am a Gemini sun.
Right.
So Gemini twin.
Yep.
And that's why I'm a professional communicator, right? So I've just always been fascinated by language. And I grew up knowing like, someone just communicated, but somebody did not comprehend.
Okay.
Like that's that Gemini energy of just like, what is happening here? And I'm also a Capricorn moon. So I do have a lot of Capricorn in my chart, which is why I also just have like a pretty, like low tolerance for spirituality that coddles, that is really self-indulgent and is all about us, kind of treating the universe like an unpaid intern, get me what I want,
Mm.
instead of like living a life of discipline and devotion to a cosmic intelligence that's bigger than you know?
Yeah.
And so that's the energy that gets me into trouble because I call Capricorn Moonstruck to honor Cher in Moonstruck, where she slaps Nicolas Cage and says, "Snap out of it." I feel like I wake up every day and just slap people.
Mm.
I know, just like snap out of it. What are you talking about? I try to do so gently as best as I can. But those are my top three. But frankly, I think the best part of my astrology is that I'm a Gemini and a twin. Like my twin sister is actually one of my best friends. There's no question about it.
Beautiful.
And she's a heterosexual woman, has two kids. So now I get to have like a parental role in their life. And to be an uncle to Evelyn and Robert is like just the highest gift. And Gemini is the sign of like interpersonal relationships. And the fact that like I didn't even have my own womb, like it's just the Gemini trait.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was the first question. And then remind me the second question.
It was the
Forgive me.
book. So
Oh, sure.
covering that and then also illustrating how it applies. Because again, because I knew obviously we've been talking about the Gemini. So I knew the Gemini,
Yes.
the Leo rising. I don't know if I knew that one. So that was able to learn about that throughout this conversation. And then the Capricorn moon, I definitely didn't know, which is so cool. And how it informs all these pieces of how you do what you do. And I love how you say too that you like that like as if you're like a drill sergeant with your astrology.
No,
You are like the sweetest, most hilarious person ever. Like I'm like, okay, try to imagine you slapping someone with. I'm like, that'd be the most playful, hilarious slap ever. You know?
yeah, it won't have a real strong grip, but man, if it's gotta,
No,
as it
it's
implies the Gemini contradictions, right? I want to be the class clown because I try not to take anything seriously, but then sometimes I'm just like, oh, but girl, it is that serious.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
no, totally. Well, it's just got so much love in it, like so much love and joy,
oh, I
you know what I
can't.
mean, in it. So it's like, but also, but the slap just like keeping people like, hey, or like don't go down like this road is like a road to nowhere. Or I love how you say too. I'll just say one more thing, which is I love how you say about like when people make the spiritual practices so much about themselves, which it's like we're all sitting here, you and I are having this conversation. It's like it's not generational either. You know what I mean? It's not just because of Instagram. It's not just because of any of these things. There's always been like guru charlatans. There's always been
Yes.
people who are like spiritual narcissists. Like there's always been that always in this space. And it's like finding these like-hearted people that are like, listen, I don't know anything. I can share my experience. And like, I mean, and I don't know anything. I don't mean to do that because we don't
I
need
know what you're saying. No, I
to.
do. I do.
I'm not like I'm not here to be God and you're here to be the like whatever. It's like no, we're in this together. Whatever. All these things we already said. So I just love how you express that in your work, in everything you
Thank
share.
you.
Yeah, no,
Thank
it's
you. Yeah, I love being an airhead. I don't want to be smart. Like I say with my other Gemini friends, like, relieve me from the burden of brilliance. We don't want to do it.
that's so
And
funny.
we have so much more fun. And actually, with this in mind, I read in this book called "Trickster Makes the World Go Round" by John Lewis Hyde, that the trickster, the comedian, the jester would always open up the ceremonies in the ancient worlds because they believed that you couldn't pray or think deeply unless you laughed first.
Oh, that's so good. That's
And that's
so
the
good.
story. That's the story of Gemini, is just lighten up.
Oh my God. I just wrote that down as trickster book. I got to read that because I find I use that great. Oof, like in breathwork and meditation, like I'll actually guide. Some people have been in sessions. It may have come up in the times we've done it, but like where I'll encourage people to laugh, even if they're like in a weird space and they're uncomfortable
Yeah.
or uncertain. I'll be like, just try on like a ha ha ha, like even if it feels stupid, or especially if it does. And usually
Please
on
do it.
yeah, usually on the other side of it, there's like some sort of explosion or big movement, a huge wave of energy
Uh,
just boom breaks wide open. So
yeah.
laughter is
Yeah.
one of the most spiritual things.
Well, what's the best medicine?
Yes, laughter. There we go.
Come on, and I knew that I was a Gemini, but when I made my lesbian husband laugh so hard that she threw up. That's what I.
That is something to aspire to. Oh my God.
I know, John. When I achieved that, I was like, honestly, I don't know what else I could do to prove that I would like love it. And of course, it was pepperoni pizza because of what else are we gonna
What? Yeah, what else would it be? Amazing.
show? I
That's
I love her. I love her memory, and she's a Sag. So Gemini, Sag are opposite signs. All we do is raise hell,
that's
and
amazing.
I guess vomit together. We had a great time.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's good if you, yeah. No, and then so yeah, and then so speaking of brilliance and you're being humble and stuff, tell me about this book. Tell me about the book and like how that.
Yeah. So, well, actually, this was my second one. I have three out now, which is great. So, hey, help me so I can, pay some student loans back because they were not cheap. So the first one is called A Little Bit of Astrology. It's by Sterling Press, and so it's just an introduction to astrology, not with like the stereotypical like Saturn rules this. I made it more of like a metaphor, and the planets were in the band, and each song was an element, just to provide a different way of thinking about astrology in a more like visual, full contact way.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, called Queer Cosmos, is all about the astrology of queer identities and relationships because I really started to get curious, and obviously still am to this day, about how prior to COVID, loneliness was the single greatest health concern in the global medical community.
Mm.
Even the UK adopted a minister of loneliness.
Ugh, yeah.
And so I really wanted to get curious about astrology as a tool for relational intelligence and relational skills. So that's my second one. And then my third book is literally all about Gemini. So my publisher asked me to write, because myself and 11 other colleagues, we wrote a book per zodiac sign. So I got to write about Gemini on my 30th birthday. And of course, I had to dedicate it to my Gemini twin sister,
Amazing.
because she'd have killed me if I didn't. So those 3 books out for now. Yeah.
That's incredible. And also, as much like whatever I do know about astrology, the one thing I do know is that Geminis, sometimes people give Geminis a hard time just for being a Gemini before they even meet them.
Exactly. I know. And you know what? Honestly, they're doing me a favor, because what do they tell me? They don't have a sense of humor.
That's it. That's it. That's it. They're trying to knock one of the 12 out, and they're missing this experience of life. Like, what the heck?
And be lifeless, and not to take it here, but I also think like astrology is such an erotic force. Like when you know about all the zodiac signs and what their wisdoms are, right? Like you kind of can't help but feel like they are all different kinds of candy, and I want to lick them all, because oh my God, this is cool, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Then you're just like, you're turned on and engaged with them in a different way, where you're like, wow, what can this alchemical energy provide me with? And it just becomes such a different, full-bodied, life force inducing way to experience astrology, as opposed to just the talking and the mind and the chatter. Like, I'm so bored of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. The spice of life, right? Like the creative force, the creative energy. Yeah.
It really is. No, it really is. I love it for that reason. I love it for so many reasons, but it's like, because I also really started to observe astrology, John, like on the dance floor, because when I was going to school in the city, I was out in Hell's Kitchen all the time. Okay. And I would just go there almost every Friday night, and me and the girlies would be like, so what's your birthday? Da, 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 and start dancing and having fun. And I got to watch the zodiac signs like express themselves through dance and joy. And that was my training ground. And so when I see it just sort of feel very lifeless and stale, I'm like, we could do a lot better than this.
Yes. Amen to that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's incredible. And then, well, I just briefly, because now you're in Rome, you're on this European tour. Is that for you? Is that like to feed the soul? Like what's this is amazing.
European tour, baby. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm in the process of applying for dual citizenship to Italy.
Nice.
And so that started about 2 years ago. I'm almost done getting all of my family's vital records. And, just being in Rome is an incredible like ancestral software update. That's the only way I can think about it. And there are certain qualities, I think, sometimes of my personality that I don't want to say I feel embarrassed by in America, but I'm certainly a little like, with it. I think a lot of it has to do with like, the way that I express myself, the way that I dress, the way that I express anger, arousal. America has a funny energy around restraint with all those things, Yep. But here, oh my God, it is like just one emotionally corrective experience after the other. Because I thought I was loud until I spoke to Matteo, Alessandro, Davide, Giada, all of them. And I'm just like, wow, look at us, and just there's a hot-bloodedness to the Italians that I just kind of really have to be around. Yeah. Otherwise, like I start to sort of feel like, what's going on here? So the longer I'm here, the more I want to eventually stay, which who knows, maybe as soon as I get citizenship and I have the legal ability to do so, I will. And then I'm going to go to Spain, speaking of hot-blooded countries, to stay with my Italian tutor. So we'll be speaking Italian, English, and Spanish mostly. And then I'm going to go to Istanbul because absolutely fell in love with that city. So I'm going to go there for about a month and just kind of, just walk around, have a whole new experience with it. Yeah.
That's amazing. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad to catch up with you and talk through that process. And I cannot wait till you're back to see you at Kripalu to, see routes like this.
That's right. Here. That's right. I'll be back in the spring, so I will definitely see you. Have you gone to Italy yet?
I went. So I had a very lucky situation where it was January, like right just before New Year's of 2020. So like the tail end of 2019, my mom and I had been planning to go on this trip ever since I got out of college, and we had never had the chance. And long story short, we had this chance to get to Italy for 2 weeks. And we went, so we arrived just between Christmas and New Year's of 2019. We arrived in Italy. I had New Year's, the New Year's mass at the Vatican because one of my friends, long story, one of my friends is he's in his 70s and he's a priest at the Vatican. So I was raised Catholic. I'm not religious at all, but I was raised Catholic and I'm just curious about religions and spiritualities and whatever. So I wasn't like, and so anyways, it was like this amazing theatrical experience to be in St. Peter's Cathedral.
Yep.
Yeah, to be there for the New Year's Day mass. Like the Pope walked by like he wasn't even 5 feet from me, which was so interesting. I was just like, whoa, this is crazy, in the Swiss Guard and all that. So, and I was there with my mom, and she's like the best travel companion. We're very compatible, and like, so we did Rome, we did Tuscany, we did Florence, we did Venice, which was like empty because everybody, like I guess everybody thought it was flooded still, and it wasn't flooded. So nobody was there, and it wasn't flooded, and so we were like waited in line for nothing, and like we went through. So it was perfect. And then Milan, and then we stopped in Paris on the way home. It was just like we had this amazing 2 weeks, and then shortly thereafter, shit hit the fan, and it's like it was one of those moments where you don't even realize how lucky that we can be sometimes, because it isn't until later that we look back at something. It's like, oh my god, and so that's all a way to say I had the most beautiful trip with my mom, and that I will never forget. It was like the best trip of my entire life, and I love Italy so much. And of course, there's an Orsini statue in Rome. There's an Orsini Avenue. There's Orsini Castle in maybe just an hour from Rome. There's an Orsini Castle, and anyway, so I was like, oh, this is great. Where's my trust fund? I was like, where's my trust fund?
For real. My goal better be under this friggin' building. Okay.
So yeah.
What did you think of the people? Were they connected to you? Were they like setting you free in some ways? How did you have the time to talk to them? Go ahead.
Yes, like warm and sweet. And anytime anybody saw like my license for something or like my ID and they saw Orsini, they were like, "Oh, cool!" Like that was pretty fun too. And then like all to your point too, like I've never been like, I like going out and stuff, but I could be shy in social situations. Like I normally find my connection surrounding like work, like passion related work, because I feel comfortable to be fully myself. But when it comes to just like going out to a bar, going out to a club, I'm just like I don't always know how to hang in a way that I wish I could. But when the times I've been in Europe, which is not a ton, but like I'll go out to a bar or a club and I feel like anybody I bump into I'm just having so much fun. Like everybody, it just feels more open somehow.
Yes.
I don't know how to exactly put my finger on it, but like what you're saying makes sense about just feeling comfortable around people in a different way.
Totally. Yeah. There's the field of this place. I'm just like, wow, I can really see how the past travels with me, because I never bought into like the American restraint around emotional exposure or around like, yeah, just especially for men, just kind of like revealing what we're feeling and, naming that. And to be here just really, again, like it's like a spiritual chiropractic adjustment, because I'm just like, yes, and it's just a beautiful feeling. And as a Cancer, I'm sure if you were ever just able to like come here with that question of just like, what is this country here to heal within me or to correct and validate within me? You would just be in tears all the time, like I am. Like even when I just land and I hear the language, like I'm just crying. I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. I'll just say one more thing, which is breathwork. In the breathwork in these spaces, to me, it's all about creating spaces to bring your authentic, open heart. And so like what's cool is like bringing all kinds of people into that space, people who are comfortable with that, people who know they need it or on some level, but aren't. Like depending on how they were raised or how they grew up, might be a little afraid of it on some level, but know that it's nourishing and that they need it. And so it's like bringing that connective expressivity into the spaces in America, in the Northeast especially, which could be more buttoned up than I even realized. As someone who grew up in the Northeast, I know now that I got this breath work, like you go to other places, LA or Austin, Texas, and they have this, there's an openness, to whatever degree. you know,
Yeah.
but like, you know, it's like it's a different sort of thing. And then you come to New York, you come to Boston, these cities that are like New York City is home to me. Boston, I was to college there. I love Boston. I love the people. The Northeast is my home.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? I'll come in here and I will be the permission slip. And if people think I'm weird for like, and I'm not, and like, I'm just talking about having an open heart. I'm not even talking about
Right.
anything crazy. And I'm like, you know what? I like, again, if that makes me like a sacrificial lamb in a sense of people being like, oh my God, it's just like being authentic, or he's just being open hearted. Like he has no walls up, like in this context, in this group. It's like, I will be that person to bring it because it's so needed and it's so nourishing. And so, you know, charge it up in Rome, charge that up and bring it home to us.
I'm trying. I'm just like stoking it up and just listening to these really funny phrases. Like this was very sweet. An Italian boy did not say that I had good energy. Instead, he told me that I have a big sun inside me. That was the poetry. I was like, huh? He was like, no, 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 Corinne, you don't have good energy. You have a big sun inside of you. And I was just like, wow. So any American boy has to top this as a compliment.
How are you gonna cop that? How are you gonna
You can, to no point. All right. You know, and yeah, they live their life so revealed here. There's no hiding. It's kind of just, it's confronting because, like you said, I'm from the Northeast as well. I think sometimes we got to do that from the weather, from the people, from the police, whatever, you know? And then I come here and everyone's just like, revealed.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable. So thank you for listening to my spiel.
No, yeah, I love that. So much to like learn and embrace and then share with it. That's so good. So I'm so glad you're
Trying. Yeah, me too. Me too.
so just say your website one more time. You're in like for Instagram, like you're free. Just so much fun. Sajid, your website, Instagram, and anything else you want to share here to contact.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
great. Well, my Instagram is at Queer Cosmos. My website is colinbedell.com. And then I'm also really excited because I am now writing the weekly horoscopes for them, the LGBTQ magazine. So that's been going really well. I left Cosmo and now I'm working here. And so you can read my horoscopes there at them.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time and for the work you do and for what you do to the space. It's incredible. I'm so grateful.
And likewise to you. The way that you move about with, again, an open heart, a level of care and kindness and strength too. Like, you know, there's that, you have stature to you. And I think that's the delicate balance of like being powerful with others as opposed to being powerful over them. And you have this really great balance of like strong and open heart. So thank you for
so
that.
much. Thank you for
Of course.
All right, and thank you again for making the time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, John. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Jon Orsini podcast. You can watch my YouTube videos at Breathwork with Jon, Jon, Instagram at Jon Orsini, and jonorsini.com for free discovery calls, Zoom sessions. Reach out anytime. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.